Staff turnover in long-term care, it's just this relentless, expensive problem. It's disruptive, and you know what? It really chips away at the well-being of the residents. But what if the way we've been trying to fix it is all wrong?
What if the answer isn't just about offering more money or hiring more people to fill the gaps? What if the real key, the actual solution, is something that empowers the caregivers themselves? Let's dig in and find out. Okay, so let's start with a reality check. We have to talk about the revolving door problem in senior care. It's a phrase we hear all the time, right? But it's more than just a headache for HR. It's a systemic crisis that's draining resources, and as we're about to see, it has a huge human cost. So what's really going on here? To get past all the assumptions, a major study actually dug in and asked 800 nursing assistants why they leave their jobs. And you know what? The real reasons might not be what you expect.
So here they are, the top 3 drivers they found: resident aggression, staff burnout, and just plain old fatigue. But look closely at these. They're not 3 separate problems, are they? They're all connected. It's a feedback loop, really, a downward spiral that creates the perfect storm for turnover.
Let's just zero in on that first point for a minute, resident aggression. Because this isn't some isolated issue. In fact, it's often the spark that lights the whole fire of staff burnout. There is a powerful, direct line between the behaviors caregivers have to face every day and the stress that eventually pushes them out the door. Okay, and this part is absolutely crucial to understand. We're not talking about random acts of aggression here. These are what experts call responsive behaviors. They're a direct, human response to an unmet need. Maybe it's pain, maybe it's fear, maybe it's loneliness. Getting this one idea changes the entire game. So just imagine for a second, you're facing these behaviors day in and day out, and you feel totally unequipped to actually help. Of course, that creates a high-stress environment. It leads straight to burnout. And that's exactly how the vicious cycle gets started, affecting everyone, staff and residents alike. So what's the real cost of all this? And I'm not just talking about the numbers on a spreadsheet, even though those are pretty staggering. Let's look at the true impact, both on the finances and, more importantly, on the quality of care itself. I mean, just look at the 2 sides of this coin. On the one hand, yeah, you've got the hard financial costs staring you right in the face. Constant recruiting, training new people, relying on pricey temp agencies. But then look at the other side. The human cost is just as real and maybe even more damaging. You get inconsistent care, resident well-being goes down, and you lose those vital, trusting bonds that are so important.
So how in the world do we break this cycle? Well, it's time for a pretty radical shift in our thinking. We need to go from being in a constant state of reaction, always putting out fires, to proactively preventing them from starting. And the key, the absolute linchpin to all of this, is empowering our caregivers.
I really love how this is phrased because it gets right to the point. The solution isn't just hiring more people to deal with the chaos. It's about equipping the people you already have with the skills and confidence they need to prevent that chaos from happening in the first place.
And what does that actually look like on the floor? Well, it boils down to these 3 steps. First, a trained caregiver can figure out the unmet need that's causing the behavior. Second, they can use common communication instead of making things worse. And third, they can redirect the resident's attention with something meaningful. It sounds simple, but it is incredibly powerful. This quote from Simon Sinek just hits the nail on the head. When you invest in your team's skills, you're not just training them, you're showing them they're valued. And when people feel valued, they don't just show up for a paycheck. They want to contribute. They become part of the solution. And that emotional investment, well, it pays some very real, very tangible dividends. So let's talk about the return on that investment, the ROI of empowerment that comes from giving your team the tools they need to truly succeed.
I mean, just look at this transformation. It's like night and day. Before, you have a team that's just trapped in a cycle of high stress and constant crisis management. But after, you have a team that's confident, that's proactive at solving problems. This is the big shift from just surviving the day to finding real satisfaction and purpose in the work.
And what happens is this creates a brand new cycle, a virtuous one. Caregivers feel more confident, which leads to stronger teams. A calmer staff leads to calmer, less stressed residents. It improves the quality of life for literally everyone involved. And it results in the one thing every organization is dreaming of: a stable, experienced, and happy workforce. So let's be really clear about this.
In today's world, creating a place where skilled caregivers actually want to stay and grow isn't just some nice-to-have bonus. It is a fundamental competitive necessity if you want to survive and thrive.
And that really brings us to the final question, the one I want to leave you with. Take a hard look at your own organization. Are you building a workplace that's just designed to get people to clock in for their next shift? Or are you building a culture where they feel valued, equipped, and empowered to truly contribute? Because the answer to that question will define your future.